Great. So thanks everyone for joining. I just want to say welcome, and we're going to dive into the session about public speaking with Matthew Butler. And in this workshop, Matt, our SAE at SkyWatch, he is senior account executive, if that's not a familiar term to everyone. He's a SkyWatch employee who is also an avid public speaker, and he'll be sharing 5 tips to deliver a better presentation. So I'll kick it over to you, Matt. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Liz. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. As Liz mentioned, my name is Matt. I'm at SkyWatch, and I've been here for just a few months now, but I've been public speaking for many years. So I'm really looking forward to connecting for a few minutes here. Hopefully I can convey 5 pearls of wisdom that you can take with you over the course of the weekend as you work on your projects. We're going to keep things high level, keep things simple, and hopefully some actionable takeaways that will be useful for your presentations. So with that, let's dive right in. So I included this graphic as a starting point. I think it's a really useful quote. Sorry if the resolution on the image isn't great, but Maya Angelou, famous poet and author, she has this quote about how people forget what you've said, but they really remember how you've made them feel. And I've always thought of this quote whenever I'm giving a presentation or I'm doing some sort of public speaking exercise, because you really want to make sure that ultimately you're connecting with the audience and you're paying close attention to how it's resonating with them and how your energy is connecting with their energy. And it sounds intangible, and in a way it is, but it's very useful to be mindful of, because you want to make sure that what you're saying is landing on them in a way that is resonating with how they're feeling. And if you can do that, they're going to way more likely remember what you say than versus not doing that. So it's a great place to start, just to keep in mind as we go through the presentation. So why public speaking? So oftentimes people will ask this of me, why have a session on public speaking? Isn't that pretty simple? We all speak every day. We talk all the time. Like we do that at school and for our jobs all the time. And it's funny because many people have a fear of public speaking. And also many people who think they're really great at it, including myself in the past, and we're hesitant to improve. There's this effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And in a nutshell, somebody who's like sort of okay at something is sometimes less likely to improve if they think they're already kind of good at it. In other words, there's a lack of self-awareness sometimes that leads them to restrict growth. So I want to call that out because the point is everyone can improve. The people who speak really well have been doing it a long time, the people who are just starting out, the people who are really nervous versus the people who are tried and true veterans. Everyone can always get better and refine their talent and their skills. This quote here is just between a CEO of a Fortune 500 company talking to a counterpart of his, and they were having a conversation about, why is this person trying to invest in improving their public speaking? And he was just speaking to the fact that, hey, I can always get better. And I've been doing this for a long time. I speak to a board, I speak to thousands of people and employees, but I can always get better. So I want to call that out because if you're sitting there thinking, hey, like I'm pretty familiar with public speaking, maybe I've done it a couple times, maybe it's something I feel less anxious about, I would encourage you to still pay attention and focus, because I think everyone can improve. And I've learned that over the years. I've been public speaking for about 10 years now, and I started out thinking, hey, like I have a pretty good handle on this. And I learned over the 10-year history that I had that, wow, every year there was new things I learned or got better with. And I'm still learning myself. So I'm going to start with 5 simple principles. Simple principles, some of them are even common sense, but just serve as really great reminders. So, number 1, economy. So what does that mean? Having economy of language, but also economy of slides. When you're giving a presentation, the worst thing you want is death by PowerPoint. I think most people have heard that term. Less is more. And you want to make sure that you're concise and you're clear. And having more slides and more content doesn't make it more clear. Oftentimes it makes it more dense. Less is more. And that's a tried and true principle. But also in terms of your speech too, the less words you can use, how quickly you can say something makes it more resonant. So something to bear in mind. Principle number 2, again, something very familiar. A picture is worth 1,000 words. We've all heard that saying. So there's definitely in the literature and public speaking, but also psychologically, there's something called pictorial superiority. So basically what that means is that somebody is much more likely to remember something and attach meaning to it if there's a visual. So that's why a lot of presentations use visuals. That's why TV and film and pictures, photography are so resonant for humans, is that we tend to remember images and visuals a lot more than just text and written word. So simple, but something to keep in mind because you want to make sure you're incorporating that into your presentations. And you see here at the top that if you add a picture, your audience is 65% more likely to remember the concept you were talking about. I attached a picture here of at the Academy Awards maybe 8 to 10 years ago when Ellen DeGeneres was hosting. She had that famous selfie. Everyone was talking about that selfie and remembering it for years past. No one remembers who won Best Picture or won any awards that year, but they remember that selfie. Principle number 3, vocal delivery and diversity. So this one, a little more technical. So I want to make sure I spend some time on this. It's really important. And if you ever enroll in a Toastmasters course or do any sort of theater or any sort of training or exercise when you're having to speak in public, you're really going to want to get familiar with diversity of tone and delivery. So that's simple. That's something as simple as volume, but that also means inflection, pacing, speeding up, slowing down, things you can do to tailor resonance and to be more impactful with what you're trying to say. So I would encourage you to explore and look into that more and find your own strengths and weaknesses. Everyone has their own differences. Some people use a lot of filler words. Some people talk really fast the more anxious they get, which is not uncommon at all. Some people talk really slowly. Some people have a monotonous tone where you're kind of talking with one kind of same tone for a long extended period of time. And that's less appeasing and clear to the ear. And people are more likely to tune out. So if you can be a little bit more cognizant of that, you can actually push your presentation into a much higher plane. Yes, and I wouldn't, don't underestimate the power of your voice to make a positive impression. It's a huge factor in terms of how people receive your presentation. Principle number 4, wow moments. So before I talk about it, I'm going to show a clip.
I saw a thing, actually, a study that said speaking in front of a crowd is considered the #1 fear of the average person. I found that amazing. Number 2 was death. Death is number 2? This means to the average person, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy.
So wow moments. My simple attempt at one in a short period of time remotely. But what that really means is having parts of your presentation where you go the extra mile, or you show something special, there's something that's a bit of a novelty, or you have a really unique spin on something that's maybe conventional. And what this does is it really helps to encourage and enhance active listening and active learning. It really reinforces that engagement you want throughout your presentation and really prevents people from, nodding off, checking their phones, because it almost reinforces the hook. A lot of people talk about having a hook at the start of a presentation, which is definitely important, but having a hook later on or at some point throughout that's a wow moment helps to solidify the whole deal. So you want to give your audiences something extra. So that's my example of that remotely, is playing a clip, which hopefully you'll remember that most people are afraid of public speaking than dying. Principle number 5, rehearse. Obviously pretty simple, but seldom done properly. You want to make sure that you're preparing, but you're also practicing. Practice definitely makes perfect, especially if you're somebody who doesn't feel extremely confident presenting. You want to make sure that you're putting in the time. There's that famous Malcolm Gladwell book about 10,000 hours. An example, Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr., very great speaker. It is estimated that he gave 2,500 speeches in his lifetime. And it's estimated he got to the 10,000 hours by 1963, I believe it was. So that's a great example of somebody who had the ability and practice so much and became great at his craft. So definitely don't negate practicing and making sure you come to your presentation prepared. And lastly, but not least, we've talked a lot about presentations. We talked about tone and delivery, but you also do not want to negate body language. Now, it's a bit more unique in the COVID era, being remote most of the time, but you want to pay attention to body language. It's a huge part of how people perceive your presentation. I would encourage you to have great posture if you can, use your hands when you can, making sure you make eye contact as best you can, and keeping an animated presence as best you can. Those are some of the things that are really going to help make your presentation hit home. And with that, I have some time for questions.
That was awesome. Thank you, Matt. So efficient, so effective. Like, it was great. I learned a lot. I'd love to open up the floor for any questions. If you want to unmute or, maybe even show your face. I appreciate it's late at night on Friday, but we'd love to hear from you if anyone has any questions.
Don't be shy. Totally fine if nobody has any questions, but we'll make sure this presentation is available after, right?
Yep, the recording will be available on the SkyWatch YouTube channel, and maybe it'd be great, Matt, if you wanted to share. I guess people can find you through the SkyWatch website. Probably search Matthew Butler SkyWatch on LinkedIn if they want to reach out to learn more.
Absolutely.
Great.
Definitely encourage you to reach out if you have any questions. I've been public speaking for 10 years, and I would encourage anyone to look up their local Toastmasters chapter or organization. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Good luck with the weekend.